Okay, thank you. All right, so all of this came about because I rewatched the recorded budget workshops that Laura DeBon from Northeast Kansas Library System gave, watched it yesterday for my own information, and realized that she's throwing out terms and information that might be confusing. So I wanted to do this as a bit of a prep so that you can get the most out of tomorrow's webinar and then the webinar on the 26th. I love Laura. She was my, go-to person for finances for 8 years when I was either at Tangi, but sometimes she says yellow and I hear purple. So just know that if things that you hear tomorrow are confusing, take notes and we'll do a follow-up on this. But what I wanted to demonstrate is you've got sort of two budgets, and I'm going to do a screen share real quick to show you what I'm talking about. You have what is your internal budget. So what you're seeing right now is sort of Iowa Public Library's very simple internal budget. It looks at the current year, so this is next year's budget, but in December, pretend. So the 2021 budget, and then what's budgeted for 2022. And this is the basis for financial reports that you give your board, hopefully, to let them know what money you're bringing in and what money is going out to pay for things that have been approved in the budget by the board. So this is one version of just a very simple budget. I also have a copy of Eureka's, which is a little bit more complicated, but it also shows you the good part about an internal budget is you're comparing yourself to yourself from 2018, 2019, 2020, so you can get a 4 or 5 year average of what your income and expenses are. And the part that, here we go. Where's her income? Oh, here's her income down here. Where's her state income? I'm going to go back to my budget because her budget doesn't have what I need. The thing that your city or your township, or if you're a district library, your district cares about are the tax receipts. So often we will give our city or our township our entire internal budget, and they'll go, oh, well, that's nice, but we just care about that one piece. They care about the money that they need to raise for you. And so this was really hard for me when I was a new director to understand that this was more information than what they wanted to know. What they wanted to know was just how much tax they needed to levy on our behalf. That is what the municipality does. They are the library board tells them how much tax money they need for the budget, and then it's their responsibility to raise those funds. So you can go to this website, amend.ks.gov, and find your county, and then within your county, find your last year's budget. So Morgan, you said your Osage Township, correct? So it should be, yes. If I click on this and download it, there you go. This is the certified budget for the Osage Township, and there's the library fund that is the taxing authorities from that law, the 12-1220. And this tells of the ad valorem, of the property values for your community, how much of that you're going to need. And the other important part of this, so this is the certificate. You notice there's multiple pages. This is for your library levy. That's a little bit, yours is a little bit different. You get to be special. But this is the other part of the budget that they're going to talk about tomorrow or later in the month that is important for us, because this is how the state library determines whether or not you get state aid. And Roger talked about this in the budget workshops. I talked about it in the budget workshop. The requirement is that your local community raises the same amount of tax or $1 more. That's one test. The other test is that your mill levy, your levy rate, so that's, I don't know if you can see my cursor, At the top, you have the first test, which is looking at dollars. And in the middle, you have the second test, which is looking at that rate. So sometimes your dollar amount can go down, but your mill rate goes up. That passes, and that means you would qualify for state aid. For McCune, for Morgan, both. They're asking for $574 more in 2021 than they asked for in 2020. So that means that they got state aid, and they left their mill levy rate stayed the same. So this means that in McCune, property values are going up. So you're in a good situation. That's great that you guys can keep your mill rate exactly the same, but because the assessed valuations went from 7.2 million to 7.3 million from 2020 to 2021, you get more money. You get more dollars for that same 4.133 mill rate. So kudos. And then I also, Lucretia, I found your documents. So for you, it's the city of Altoona. You're a city library, whereas opposed to McCune is a township library, slightly different. So as part of the city, they have their general fund. So that's the money that the city is raising to use at the city. And then they're also on your behalf raising the libraries. So then there's yours. Part of this whole, the way this works, and I guess the reason why cities are willing to do this is at the top of this, it says computation to determine the limit for 2021. Total amount needed, total amount from last year's budget. And then they subtract out the library, that $4,333. So the city does this on our behalf, but they're separate. It doesn't impact them, because I think later they add it back in. Yeah, they'll add it back in. Library levy down here, they're going to add it back, and then figure out what their total tax, how much taxes they're going to need to raise. And then we can skip. All this is about other stuff they don't care about. And we can go back down to Lucretia's grant and aid, state aid, and look at the first test and the second test. And yours is slightly different. So in your first test, the amount of tax raised from 2021 was less, $42, not a whole lot, but $42. But your mill levy rate went up because your assessed valuations went from 1.03 million to 1.02. So you lost, what is it, about $15,000? So that's not so good. But this is what's happening in some of our rural counties in Southeast Kansas. Now, for Lucretia, if that mill levy rate, say you have a charter ordinance and it says the city says that the library can't ever charge more than 4.2, then you would have risked losing state aid, because both the amount of dollars that raised would have gone down, and the mill rate, the mill rate would have gone up on that case. But sometimes you can get into that situation where, because the assessed valuations, the property values have gone down in your community, and there's a charter ordinance, there's a cap on how high you can have, because here's how it goes. It's like a balance. If your assessed valuations go down, your mill levy rate goes up. And if your assessed valuations go up, your mill levy goes down. Does that make sense? And so if you're in a situation where your assessed valuations go down and your mill levy goes up, but you have a ceiling, and you can't get it higher because of you have a charter ordinance that's put a cap on that, then you could be in a situation where you don't get state aid. And we actually have 3 libraries didn't qualify for state aid this year because of that. So that you'll hear about these tests and this worksheet for grant and aid. And I really want to make sure that all of my libraries understand how this works and what this means, and why it's important. Because if you don't qualify for state aid, even though it's like, $100, you don't qualify for the SEKLS grant, which is a lot more than $100.
So because we lost the 15,000, we still qualify for the state aid then?
Because your levy rate went up. Yep. So you were able to increase your mill levy rate to get the dollars, to raise more dollars, because your assessed valuations went down. So you were able to make up the difference by increasing your levy rate. So this, you passed the second test. That's why it says qualify down there, but you did not pass the first test. Granted, the city could have given you a check for $42 and you would have passed the first test. So there's ways you can work with this. So that's what we're in the process now. Those 3 libraries that didn't get state aid, we're working with them and talking to their city clerk and finding out if there's a way that this can be fixed.
Yeah, getting them to give that would be like pulling teeth, because they think I should be working for free. It should be a volunteer thing anyway. So
yeah, so it's, I mean, part of the reason why I think it's important for us as the library directors to understand what the city does on our behalf is so that we can make it, one, as easy for them as possible, so that you build that goodwill, and so that you and the board can say, we noticed that we didn't get state aid, and we noticed that you forgot to file on our behalf. That happened in 2 of my libraries. So there was nothing on the, I'm going to go to this page. Oh no, I'm going to go back up here to this page, where this one. So on one of my libraries, we looked at this certificate, and under library it had 0 and 0 because the city clerk made a mistake. So you guys, by being more aware of the process, then you can advocate for yourself and for your board and for your library. What was that other page? This is hard to see. I'm gonna try to. So this is what your city takes. Your big, beautiful interior budget that has all of the, we get allocation and we get tax money, and we are going to spend it on materials and on salaries, and they boil it down to taxes and tax money, and your expenditures, it's one line: appropriation to the library. So they keep it as they like simplify things as easy as possible. And the fact that you need $5,800 and non-ad valorem tax will raise $972, and you have a carryover, supposedly, or had, this is for last year, of about $200, that tells them the difference between your need, $5,800, and what you have available, $1,161, is $4,639. Laura will say, we're solving for X. You'll hear that term a lot, solving for X. And this is what she's talking about, that the difference between what you need and what these other little taxes will pay for is how much ad valorem tax the city needs to raise on your behalf. Hi, Kayla. We're recording this, so if you can go back and hear some of the beginning part. But I'm gonna mute you real quick. Okay. So that's it in boiled down. We, as the board, or the library board and library director, needs to tell our funding authority how much money you need, and then they do this, they fill out this form and figure out the math to know how much tax they need to raise on your behalf. Clear as mud? I mean, seriously, it took me 4 years to figure that out. So and I really, really didn't get it until I became a district library, and I had to fill this information out myself. So the district libraries, and I'm going to do this for SEK, I'm responsible for going and filling this out. You're seeing this just as a PDF. This document is municipal services. Where's my budget? Budget workbooks, 2022 budget workbooks. So this is where your city or your township or your district is getting this information. It comes from the state. It's a government provided Excel spreadsheet, but it's amazing spreadsheet. So if you, let's see, special districts or special districts. So this is mine. This is the thing that I'm going to get to fill out. Oops, cancel. Have you ever seen a workbook with this many tabs? Just keeps going and going and going and go. Yeah. So, but the thing is, this workbook is all, everything feeds into things. It has all these like really cool built-in formulas. And this tab right here, does that look familiar? There's our workbook, and it will automatically fill in all of those numbers and let you know if you qualify or don't qualify. And it will, there's that page to let you know, the library, enable editing. Okay, there we go. Library, you need $1,000. There's this input. Anyway, your city clerk will fill in all of the information that they get to populate these numbers. But right now, the amount of ad valorem tax is it's going to exactly equal how much money we say we need. So anyway, this workbook, Laura will be showing you bits and pieces of it tomorrow. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody was, one, aware of it, knew where to find it, knew where to go and spy on their municipality to see if they've, if they did things correctly. And that was municipal budgets right here. That's where you get to, and this is all last year, so they haven't put up this year's municipal budgets, but you are all able to contact your city clerk or your county. For Morgan, I think you'd get yours through your county commissioner or your county clerk for the 2022 spreadsheet. That huge Excel workbook that I just showed you, they have that, and they can send that to you in an email because it's just an Excel document. And then you can have that for your information and just to have. And for allocation, some of my libraries have, that's what they send me. They send me the sheet from the special district library workbook, especially my district libraries, and that is their official budget, because that is the budget that goes into the paper and that is approved and gives you your spending authority. Okay. So the don't save. I can quit sharing now. Okay. That's mainly it. I wanted to make sure that you had some familiarity with these documents so that when Laura starts talking about them, you know what she's talking about. If I say carryover, do you know what I'm talking about? Everybody understands carryover and knows what their carryover is or will be, I guess. Some of us haven't gotten our January bank statements, so we're not quite sure what we're going to end 2021 in. But basically that carryover is how much money did we not spend last year that we're bringing over into this year. And it's perfectly legal to have carryover. You actually should have carryover just in case, because we don't get any tax money until January. January 20th is the first distribution of tax money. So we need to make sure that in the bank account, we have enough money to pay salaries, to pay the utilities, to make sure that that gas bill in January can get paid. So having carryover, and as you're creating your budget, thinking about that, and I'm not gonna say padding, but I'm gonna say padding, making sure that your budget has enough extra dollars in it that you can have carryover, or you can have a line on your budget as an expense that is carryover. And it's a couple of months. Usually it's about 2 months worth of expenses. So, or if you get paid monthly, 2 pay periods. If you get paid bi-weekly, it's like 6 weeks. So developing your internal budget, hopefully, I mean, you guys have all been doing that as you go, looking to see what expenses you're going to have for the next year. I always do like a 5-year. So that's why I showed an image from Eureka where they had 2018's budget, 2019's budget, 2020's budget, 2021's budget. So then you can see if there's trends, you can see if things are staying the same. You can see if we had this weird anomaly. And then you can look at your 2022 budget is not just based on how much did we spend last year. It's based on what's our trend? How much have we spent over the last couple of years? So eventually we're going to get out of COVID land. And when that happens, are we going to be in a situation where people are expecting everything that they expected in 2019, but we don't have as much money, because we lowered our hours. And so we don't need to buy as many books or whatever. So making sure that when you're developing your budget for 2023, we're looking at pre-COVID and post-COVID for expenses, and also thinking about technology. Is any of our technology going to die? Do we have a new initiative? Iola really wants to have, I want Iola to have Sunday hours. What's that going to cost? So doing thinking ahead and having the other thing that Laura's going to say is you budget to a plan. You don't plan to a budget. And that just means have your strategic plan. Know you and your board and your community have talked about what changes, if any, you want to make in the next year and how much those are going to cost, and putting it into your budget so that we're tax supported. So putting it into the budget so that it's very transparent that we're going to try to do this new thing, Sunday hours, and it's supported by the community. So we think that this increase in tax that we need, because we're going to have to hire somebody to work that day, and we're going to have more utilities because being open on Sunday means the lights are on, the electricity's on, and computers are being used. So there's going to be more money that we need, and being able to justify that. Because again, the board has the authority to raise the tax money they need. The city doesn't get to tell the board how much money. The board gets to tell the city. Now, I do understand you're all in a very small organization, we're all in the same pond together. And so big fish and little fish, and we all have to get along. So sometimes you have to negotiate that, and maybe in 3 to 5 years we'll get Sunday hours, not just next year, because I'm new, and you want to make sure that you plant those seeds for new ideas long before you ask for the money. That's just the politics part of it. All right, it's been almost a half an hour, so do you guys, was this helpful?
I think it was helpful. I do have a question on the carryover.
Yes.
We have our chairperson from the township, and she said if we have any carryover from the tax money, we get taxed on it, or a penalty put against us for having carryover.
So what Laura would say and what I will say is your carryover is always non-tax money. Your carryover will always be your allocation from SEK, grants that you got, money from donations, anything, state aid. You can carry over state aid. But yeah, it's true that you technically cannot carry over tax funds. So that's a math thing. You make sure that if your budget is $10,000 and you've raised $8,000 in tax money, by the end of December, you have spent at least $8,000, and that $8,000 is all tax money.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. And it's semantics. Just make sure that, because we're a nonprofit, we don't want to raise $20,000 in taxes and end the year and only have spent $10,000 in taxes, because that's not right. then it would be, if I was a taxpayer, it's like, well, why did you get all that money from me if you didn't need it and you didn't spend it? Lucretia, Kayla, any additional questions?
I don't know if my question is directly with this budget or not. But do we, like on the allocation report, when we're doing all of our budgets and everything, do we put the grant money that we have received? Like I received the ARPA grant. Do we claim that as?
You don't have to. So you
No.
have your internal budget and what's called your operating budget. And the operating budget is just that, the money that you need to stay open and to be operating. And that's the budget that is primarily tax supported. It is the budget that's supported by funds that you can rely on, and grant allocation you can rely on. Competitive grant you can't really rely on. So I wouldn't put competitive grants in the budget, but I would put allocation in the budget. And then for, all of us, a lot of us got ARPA money, or we got CARES money, or we got SHARP money, from all these different, from the state. That doesn't have to be in your budget. That is sort of outside of your operating budget, because it's grant funded and it's grant money. It's special magic money. Okay. When I think of it like that. Yeah. So so for example, we have an endowment and for Iola. So we know the board has said a percentage of that endowment, a certain amount of money from that endowment is going to be put into the operating budget. So, like pulling money, we know every year we're going to pull a certain amount of money out of the savings account and put it into the checking account. Think of it like that. So we're going to, every year we take 3 to 4% of our endowment fund. And so when it says revenue on my budget and it says endowment, it's that portion of the endowment. Because sometimes, I had this when I was in Pennsylvania. Your funder finds out that somebody gave you $500,000. Somebody died, they loved the library, they gave you this big money. And so then the city goes, oh, well, you don't need tax money, you've got this endowment. Can't you just run the library on that endowment? No. Mm-mm. We are publicly funded. So that means that we need to be tax supported. But it is, it would be a appropriate thing to do is if we do get a big chunk of money from an endowment or whatever, that we make sure that we don't have to go to the taxpayers if we have another source of money. Does that make sense? So that's why it's so important for us to fundraise. We can be good stewards, and we can help keep that mill levy and keep that dollar amount the same that we're asking for in tax money for many, 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 many years, because we did a fundraiser or we sent out an annual appeal, and we found out there's some people in the community that love the library and they're willing to give us a couple $1,000s a year. Don't know if you don't ask. So that's the importance of finding other sources of funding for the library. But primarily, like 70+% of our budget is tax money. Just remember, the police don't have to go out there and do bake sales, but they do for some of that fun stuff that they want. For us, it's programs. For them, it's, I don't know, tactical equipment. I don't know. I'd have to ask my nephew. He's a police officer. All right. Cool. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you guys, your time is precious. We're gonna, tomorrow is the Apple, and then in 2 weeks it's the Apple again, and then that Friday, right, the 28th, I think. I think it's the final Friday in January. We're doing a finance interest group, which is again, is just going to be a Zoom meeting that we have, and we can talk about all things finance, and it's going to be informal. And if you guys have questions from these 2 workshops that you wanted to come and talk about, great. And other people who are either have graduated from Apple or not even related to Apple might be in on this meeting as well, and would benefit from hearing those questions and answers. So good. Kayla, you haven't done your allocation yet. Lucretia, I think you did yours. I've been loving doing that. And everybody's sending their allocation so I get to see everybody's budget. I'm very nosy, so I'm like, oh, this is fun. So let us know if you have any questions about that or anything else. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we will